Hold on tight for the next hour. You're entering into a place, a zone called the alternative to the alternative media. It's a place, a special place where even truth seekers fear to tread.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
Affirmative.
Okay, glad you're back on the Investigative Journal on this Friday. This is August 4th, 2017, the end of the week, so let's get right to it, end the week in the right way. And I wanted to start out, I got two little things I want to talk about, two stories on my website. One regarding politics, the other regarding chemtrails. I'll get to that in a minute. Then we're going to finish up the show with the last part of my interview with Svali, who witnessed child sacrificing in the Vatican when she was a child. So we'll get back to that. I've been asked to play that interview I did back in 2006 many times, so I'm getting around to that now. But first I want to start off by saying this. Go to my website at arcticbeacon.com, and you can get shows going back well over a decade. And please, when you get to that site, it's going to take you to my new site at Greg Anthony's Journal. And then you can press that donate button. I'm trying to raise at least $4,000 this month to keep this show going, pay all expenses. And if you can help out, we're at about the $120 range right now. So see what you can do. Now, on another front, remember I did that show where I was saying, you got to live, no matter how old you are or whatever, you gotta start living, at a certain point in your life. You got to make some of those dreams come true that you always wanted to do. And although I've made many dreams come true over the years, simple ones, like for example, if I get up and I have a good bowl of pasta, that's a dream come true. If I get up and make myself a vegetarian quesadilla, that's a dream come true. And I've had many little dreams like that. I don't ask for much. I'm not asking to win the lottery. In fact, I think anybody who plays, you get a better chance of getting hit by lightning. But then they'll say if you can't win if you don't play. All right. Anyway, I'm not going to get into the lottery. But as I told you, me and a good friend of mine who's a writer, we've always had this idea to recreate the Pilar, which was Hemingway's boat that he owned for 27 years. And we finally found a replica, there's only 3 like it left on the planet. And I explained what they were. There was one Hemingway's boat that was built, it's a 38-foot wheeler. That's at his home on blocks in Cuba. Then there's another one owned by an East Coast doctor or lawyer. I think it's a lawyer. Third one, which is kind of it's a smaller boat, but Andy Garcia, Garcia, the actor, wants to make a movie about Hemingway, so they put in a lot of money and found this wheeler, and it's only a 32-foot or 34, so it's not the exact size of Hemingway's. And there's a little bit of discrepancies on a lot of the things they did, but it looks pretty close. There's no outriggers on it. The helms are on the wrong side, etc., etc. But that boat's up for sale for $375,000. Okay. Now there's one left. And me and my buddy found it. And we were entering into a contract, and we're raising the money for this project, which will be a literary, but yet a total experience. And we got to raise some money to buy the boat first, which we're doing, and then, of course, to renovate it. And that renovation, in fact, he's calling now, and I'm going to hang up on him because I have to do this show. But maybe, what I wanted to get at is what we're trying to do is create this idea of Hemingway's boat being reconstructed. And we found the boat to do it. It's going to cost a pretty penny, but the idea is to create a charter company to charter Hemingway experiences. In fact, when you come on the boat, you will be in the 1930s. You will experience almost like an acting scene of what it was like to go out back then. But we're not going to stop there. What we're going to do is create some really fun things. In fact, every year we're going to have a writers contest where people actually come aboard the boat because Hemingway wrote a lot of his stuff on this boat. And so we're going to offer a weekend for up-and-coming Hemingway writers or just short story writers. And they will come aboard, spend a weekend, and write their story. They can, work by themselves. We'll provide privacy. You can be out on the deck, etc., etc. And we'll hold the Hemingway yearly contest, writing contest, and pick the winner at the end of the year. We'll also have a Hemingway look-alike contest that we'll do in Key West every year. I'm not sure if we'll get the boat there, but we'll be there. And the whole idea is to remember this man in a different way. And so my buddy's written a screenplay about the life of Hemingway, and a lot of it in the end regarding how he was framed by the CIA, how they wanted to get rid of him for his connection to Cuba. And it's an interesting story, the drugging of Ernest Hemingway. But in 1934, Hemingway ordered his 38-foot fishing yacht, the Pilar, from the Wheeler Boatyard in New York. His design, innovation, a trolling motor, a fly bridge, and outriggers changed the face of deep-sea fishing. It's interesting. And if all those words didn't make sense to you, email me and I'll explain them. Over the next 30 years, Pilar became the most famous wooden boat in the world. The U.S. Coast Guard boat registry lists only 3 Wheeler playmates left on the planet, and I explained them all. And we recently are getting together with Master Boat Builder, a master boat builder up in upstate New York, Washington, who found this Pilar, and now we're negotiating our deal. And he'd been searching for years for a boat like this. And so my buddy and I have been searching for a long time, and so we have to do it. It's almost like it's one of the biggest dreams I ever wanted to come true. And I'm really doing it also for him, because he's written this great screenplay, and nobody seems to want to publish it, and I wonder why. Now, working with this boat builder, we've secured the rarest of boats, and the last seagoing playmate to be registered as the Pilar II. She will carry parties out to sea on Hemingway charters, where his works such as Old Man in the Sea and Islands in the Stream will be read and discussed, his recordings listened to, and videos of him viewed. The charter will offer a French, Italian, Spanish cuisine, and of course with his favorite wines. Now each year, I like that part of it. I lived in Italy and grown accustomed to good white wine. Now each year the charter will host the winner of the Key West Hemingway Lookalike contest and hold an annual short story competition for unpublished writers. And about 5% of those proceeds will go to the Hemingway Home Museum in Cuba. We're going to start a GoFundMe budget. Will be used to complete the boat purchase, 6-month renovation, relocation to San Diego or Ensenada to start out, part 1 of the Voyage of the Pilar documentary, and the first several months of charter operations. Part 2 of the documentary will chronicle Hemingway's Pilar years from 1934 to 1962, including documented reports of FBI presence at the Mayo Clinic when Ernest was given massive electroshock treatments for depression. That's an interesting part of the story. So if you're business-minded, you're entrepreneurial, you want to get involved in this project, keep listening to my show. We'll direct you to, we're putting together right now the whole package. And I'm confident that we'll raise enough money to do this. And it will be a great, great project. And, I can do my radio show from the Pilar. You pretend I'm Ernest Hemingway one night, But anyway, I wanted to get that said. So here we go. Now, the 2 stories I wanted to talk about on my website. Let's talk a little politics before we get into satanic worshiping at the Vatican. This idea of what they're doing to us with this, that's all you hear in Washington is the Trump investigation with Russia. And there's really not much there. But Robert Mueller, who's the special counsel, why didn't they have a special counsel for Hillary? He's now got a grand jury going. Now, there should have been a grand jury years ago with the Clintons. Now, I was sent 2 videos by a listener, and I want to clear up these 2 issues. The first one is this one. The House Judiciary Committee just yesterday decided, 20 Republicans said we need to investigate Clinton and her gang. They didn't say it quite that way. Now, in the first video, U.S. House Rep King rips the veil off the Hillary Clinton, James Comey, and Loretta Lynch cover-up. It should be noted that Special Counsel Robert Mueller, investigating Trump, he was deeply involved in the Uranium-1 Clinton scandal. When they gave all this uranium to Russia, they gave more stuff to the Obama administration, helped Iran and Russia more than anybody. And they're just skating free, right? So this is really a game they're playing. I told you this is like a Hollywood movie. But we're going to listen to Representative King anyway, because I think there's a lot of American people out there who really would like to see some justice. And I don't know where it's going to go. But if they're getting white hot for Trump's scalp, then there's every reason to appoint another special counsel to investigate the Clinton mess. And like I said, as we speak, 20 Republicans in the Judiciary Committee have called to investigate Clinton and her gang. Let's see where it goes. And why don't we listen a few minutes to what King said yesterday? It's quite interesting. Let's stay on politics for a while today on the Investigative Journal. And here we go. Here's King. I'm going to play this as soon as it decides to pod up here. Sometimes these computers, they have a mind of their own. Aren't you worried someday about becoming controlled by robots? I mean, we're already controlled by these machines now. We live and die by them. We can't go out without our cell phone on our side. I mean, I'm the same way. The other day I left without my cell phone. I had to go back and retrieve it. Here we go. Here we go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Listening to this debate, it strikes me that there's a few things that have been left out of this discussion, and I do support the gentleman from Florida's amendment, and I follow the ideology of this in the process. One of the things I would say to that is that as I listened to the gentleman from Tennessee address this subject matter and raise his voice pretty strongly.
Oh boy, the computer's really acting
up. The allegations of Obama versus Russians versus Putin. I would make a couple of points on this. One is, it's pretty clear that the Obama administration sent their people over to Israel to work against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Pretty much openly. Significant dollars invested in that campaign over there. The President of the United States, with at least the moral support of the people that had worked for him in the country of Israel, seeking to shift the results of the election against the seated Prime Minister, Bibi Netanyahu. Then the gentleman, I won't yield. I have a lot of things I must say, but thank you. Then the gentleman did object to U.S. tax dollars being used. I just came back not that long ago from the Balkans, where I sat in a place like Macedonia. And there I learned that the United States government, borrowing money from China and Saudi Arabia, had handed over somewhere at least $5 million in contracts transferred through USAID into George Soros organizations that were used to manipulate elections in the Balkans. And that's just particularly Macedonia, not including the neighboring countries that are there. And some of that money was used to translate Saul
Alinsky's
Rules for Radicals into Macedonians to distribute the books, and the rules for radicals and the actions of radicals were manifest.
Yeah, the computer's acting up a little bit, but we'll get through it. Don't worry, we will.
Within the election efforts in that part of the world. So I would say that the Obama administration is a long ways from clean on this as far as being involved in elections in other countries, not to mention little comments like the British, if you vote Brexit, you're going to have to go to the back of the queue. So that's the taxpayer dollars piece of this. But the long string that we should be looking at with this investigation and special counsel that is our request here, it goes a long ways back. It goes clear back to Huma Abedin, Anthony Weiner, 650,000 emails, which we still have access to. And the question that was answered to us by James Comey, which is there was nothing to see there. We did a fast software search of 650,000 emails, and in the case of Huma Abedin and Anthony Weiner sharing laptop and sharing emails, there was nothing new in 650,000 emails. And what we've done in this Congress so far is just taken his word for that. Now, it seemed fairly logical to take his word at the time until you examine the investigation that he conducted of Hillary Clinton. Oh, by the way, it was a matter. The investigation that had Cheryl Mills, her chief of staff, as her chief counsel in the room with Hillary Clinton, and both of them had a plea bargain of some kind. They were exempted from prosecution for some by limited terms, but in any case, when you have this chief of staff who's a subject of investigation too, they're as counsel to the person who's the subject of the investigation, and we ask under oath, and I ask these questions of Comey, or of Loretta Lynch and Comey under oath, and that is, where's the copy of the transcript? Where's the audio files? Where's the video files? Who was in the room? We don't have the answers to any of that except no. If there were notes taken, we don't know whose they are or where they are. If there was any transcript of the deposition, then that doesn't exist either. Neither do the tapes of either audio or video. This is what looks like on its face is a sham investigation. Plus, they destroyed a tremendous amount of information, at least 30,000 emails, crushed hard drives, bought bleach bit, hired outside contractors to scrub the emails up, and we're to take James Comey's word for this, that there wasn't enough substance there to bring a prosecution, even though on a year ago, July 5th, James Comey delivered 15 minutes of the summary of a prosecution that was completely convincing to me, until they got down to the last couple of sentences of that presentation, which is, well, we can't prove intent. Well, curiously, there's no requirement for intent in the two statutes that appear to have been violated. And furthermore, I look back in the records to the previous October and the previous April. Barack Obama stated into the news media record, he said Hillary Clinton would never intend to put our national security at risk. Hillary Clinton would never intend to harm America's security. That's October and April, the previous October and April. Well, James Comey latched...
Yes, I think James Comey and the Clintons and all of them are in cahoots to keep us... she's not going anywhere, folks. She is not going to go anywhere. And I wonder how far this will go, because they're now opening up this investigation, right? And I wonder just how far it will go. King here will continue in a bit, but I wanted to mention that. I just find it amazing that as soon as Trump got in, he was saying, hey, let's prosecute. Nothing has been done. This is the first little sign that they may do something. But let's see really what happens in the future. Okay, he goes on a bit, talks about the tarmac, when Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton got together. And it appears that Comey, Clintons, and all of them were in cahoots. And we'll see what happens. But, it's politics as usual. Now, are they playing a game with us? Is this guy playing a game with us too? We'll have to wait and see. Because, the Jesuits love this Hegelian dialectic. And he appears to be playing the part of the Republican who's saying, well, why not prosecute Clinton if you're going after Trump? Seems that way to me. Well, the other video that was sent to me that I did want to play, if a computer doesn't act up. A guy sent me this, and he put a note on it. He said, I sincerely believe this Chem Trail pilot signaled the world that chemtrails are not the exhaust from jet engines. Well, we know that. He did it by turning on and off the chemtrails over and over again. So he's flying through the sky, and you see the chemtrail, then you see no chemtrails, then you see another line. It's like dashes in the sky. So he was trying to tell people that it can't be exhaust or, from a jet engine. It's not. It's never been that. I mean, we have so much evidence against these people. They're basically spraying us to death, and we just sit by and won't do anything. And the funny thing is, all these countries are working together. So,
on to that word
intent, here he is.
And they made up new law and gave Hillary Clinton an exemption for this.
Okay, we're going to end this here with Mr. King, as the computer's acting up, and I think he's said his piece. You can go get that. Just Google Representative King wants House investigation or something like that. Well, listen, this the video, go to Chemtrail Pilot Signals World, and it's 100% proof because you got to see it. I'm just going to read some stuff here. He did this by turning engines on and off. Like I said, this gives us case closed, proof that we are spraying chemtrails. You can't get any better proof than this, can you? Send this video viral. This man said he first noticed chemtrails in '96. Sent the proof to Matt Drudge dozens of times over the next years. Oh, the supposed Drudge reporting the truth. Drudge has hidden the proof of chemtrails to this very day. He's not your buddy. Anybody who censors chemtrails from you is working for the evil ones. Okay, pretty good. Pretty good little clip there. Okay, let's see how much time we got left. And got about 4 minutes here. And so what I can do, why don't we do a little bit? Remember I was going to, I want to finish up this hour. And yesterday I read this piece by Simon, it's called Simon Magus. I got to that point by Ernest L. Martin, and it traces the Vatican Babylonian history. So let me read a couple paragraphs from this man's great work. He really did a good job. And it used to be on my old website under Forbidden Library, and luckily I still have a copy. What were the origins of Catholic Babylonian Christianity? What was Simon's religion before he met Peter? Where did that religion originate? You're going to see that in this article he wrote, and detailed documented account of Simon Magus and counterfeit Christianity. The false religious system began very early, almost with Pentecost in 31 AD, even in the earliest of Paul's epistles. He informs us that the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Paul wrote this in 50 to 51 AD. The plot to supplant the truth had already begun. In the later epistles of Paul and in those of other apostles, we find it gaining considerable momentum. However, even though the apostles discussed the diabolical system which was arising, they nowhere mention how it started. They had no need in mentioning its beginning. That had already been done. The book of Acts is the key to the understanding of Christian beginnings. Not only does it show the commencement of the true church, but it equally reveals the origins of the false church masquerading as Christianity. Indeed, you would think it odd if the book of Acts did not discuss this vital subject. Okay, I got about 2 minutes here. So, the book of Acts, the key. First, let us recall 2 points of necessary understanding. 1. The book of Acts was written by Luke about 62 AD, some 31 years after the true church began. Acts recalls all events which affected, in a major way, the true church. It especially tells us about the beginnings of matters relating to church history. Number 2. Acts does not record every single event relative to the church, important as one might think them to be. For example, Luke doesn't mention a single thing about the activities of 10 of the original 12 apostles. Yet are we to assume that they did nothing important in the history of the church? Absolutely not. They must have done many mighty works, but we can see from this omission that Luke recorded only those events which were absolutely necessary for God's church of the future to know. Notice that Luke's geography leads him towards the northwest and west of Palestine. He discusses church history in Asia Minor, Greece, and Rome. He wanted to leave us with the truth of what was going on in the west and north, because the prophecies showed the false system arising in those locations. Okay, so we'll stop there with a few paragraphs. Quite interesting, and I'm going to continue reading excerpts from this man's work regarding the origins of Christianity as well as the origins of Babylonian Catholicism, which to this day isn't distinguished amongst our great scholars of Christianity, right? The guys out there working in the ecumenical movement, they seem to want to mesh together with Rome and Babylon and Satan, don't they? Back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The following program is labeled dangerous and off limits by the supreme Jesuit command. But stand tall, people. Listen up, and you may just learn something.
Oh, dear Lord Jesus, this ain't happening, man. This can't be happening, man. This isn't happening.
Okay, we're back for the last half hour of this week on Friday. This is August 4th, 2017 day on our calendar. We're having a great show so far. At least I think so. Now, why don't you email me and tell me what you think at gregbeacon@gmail.com. Now, I don't know if you've listened to my show, but I've had a number of businesses in my life. I used to own small newspapers. I had owned a couple of restaurants when I was younger. I doubt if I could do that now. Wow. I used to walk miles and miles in one evening, but I enjoyed it. But still, I was eating, as I get a little older, I've decided I'm not eating meat. I have occasional fish, but not even much of that. It's all kind of a vegetarian fruit diet that I'm on, because I've gotten to realize that you can get better protein from plant life and from fruits than you can from animal protein. You don't really need it. Now, people are going to disagree. But I decided every Friday I'm going to give you a recipe that will be good for you. And I'm going to make this tomorrow. And it's my recipe for quesadillas. Okay? Here's what you want to do. You want to get 2 cups of red pepper hummus, 8 corn tortillas, 1/2 cup chopped green onions, 1/2 cup chopped tomatoes, 1/2 cup salsa, and you spread a tortilla with 2 or 3 tablespoons of hummus and place it in a large non-stick, okay? Place it in a large non-stick skillet over medium heat. Sprinkle with onions, tomatoes, and salsa. Top with a second tortilla and cook until bottom tortilla is warm and soft, 2 to 3 minutes. Turn and cook, second side for another minute. Remove from pan and cut in half. Repeat with remaining tortillas. You got a lot of tortillas. It's a great, I can just taste it right now. So I'm going to make this tomorrow. And I recommend every Friday come back. I'm going to give you a healthy recipe, all plant life, and maybe some fruits. So we'll do that. In fact, I want to give you a nice Mexican salad next week. Okay? So anyway, I guess maybe if nobody's going to fund my radio show, I'll start a cooking show. And I bet you that would probably go over a lot better, wouldn't it? And I can give you a lot of my own little personal recipes that I've done throughout the years. I learned to cook in Italy, and now I'm refining my cooking because I found out a lot of new things about proteins and all this stuff, which interests me. And I've been on this now for 3 or 4 weeks, and I feel much better. Much better. And so come back next week for Greg Anthony's Journal, Cooking with Greg. Okay. Cooking with Greg. Now we move to Satanic. How do you segue to that? Well, Cooking Show with Greg. Now we move to Satanic worshiping in the Vatican. And hopefully they don't eat the kids they kill. No, I mean, that's not even a good joke. I mean, you know what they say, a good joke is tragedy in time, but that's not even funny. But what I'm getting at is these people are so sick, I wouldn't put anything past them. Now, I did this interview with Svali about 11 years ago. And I played half of it yesterday, and a bunch of people asked me to play it, so I thought I would. So let's get back, finish the show, finish the week, have a great weekend, try my recipe. You'll just have to, slide back on my tape when you get the show, and you will enjoy those quesadillas. Okay, so here we go. Let's play Svali.
If we have some time in the next half hour, it may take.
Oh yeah.
If a person has a strong.
We're there. I messed up.
Okay, we're back with Svali. If we have some time in the next half hour, we may take a call or two. 800-259-9231. That's 800-259-9231. And I know, Svali, I want to thank you for submitting to these interviews on my website. I have a 4-part series, the last part appearing tomorrow, regarding the Illuminati. Much of it centered on you. Some of it centered on things I learned years ago. All of it talking about this devastating, this crazy plan to really destroy our country. We're seeing it play out right now. And I want to thank you. I guess this final curtain on your public chapter of this part of your life is coming to a close. I know after this interview you don't want to grant anymore, and I can understand it's difficult, dangerous. And I know you didn't sleep last night thinking about it. I know they don't want you talking about this. About how many people in our country are involved in this group?
My estimate, based on what I saw, was roughly about 1% were Illuminati.
And that's a good amount. I mean, when you think about it, if they're organized. Now, tell me in your what you heard in your life from your perspective, being inside of this group, what their plans were, when there's what the time frame is as far as when they are planning to pull the curtain down on America, the military state, the rest of the things that we talk about daily. Go ahead.
Well, I was told that my children's generation would see the unveiling of it. I was told that I would be alive during it, but it would be when they come into their prime. So I was told that roughly within the next 50 years that this would happen. Actually, in about the next 45 years or less. Their goal is to dominate the world. I mean, and when you think about it, this is being done through financial means, through controlling finances, the media, government, and education. Those were the four primary areas that they sought to control. And
I guess I can ask you, it isn't most of these people that are in our government right now, along with some of our high-powered media people, are all involved in the same plan, aren't they?
Yeah, to varying degrees, yeah.
And you know something, you talked about this about the financial collapse they had planned, and I know that you've mentioned it, and you said it would make the Great Depression look like a Sunday picnic.
Yeah.
Tell us about what you heard about that.
Well, it's just in leadership they would talk about that. I mean, it's all been planned out, and they would be manipulating the world finances to create, not just in the U.S., but I mean mainly. First it would start in the U.S., but then it would become a worldwide depression, an economic collapse that was meant to create a great deal of chaos, confusion, and fear. Because their philosophy is that out of chaos comes order. That's chaos order. And so they would do it through finances, because they know that if people feel that they're losing their money, they'll panic. And as a result of depression or the financial collapse, and what was going to occur next would be, I was told, mass riots, looting, people, panicking because they didn't have enough money to live on, and then things would, crime and violence would increase too, and then the military would step in. The government would then bring in military control and enact all kinds of rulings for crowd control, and at that point, soon after, it would just become open. Now
you lived this. You worked in it. You were part of it from birth. You were brainwashed basically to believe that you were doing something good for the world.
Oh, yeah.
And what did they feel about people like me, from middle class background, many millions of people just like me? How do they view the masses? How did you talk about them?
Well, they view the masses as sheep. The Illuminati believe that they are in the intelligentsia of the world. In fact, they very much follow Plato's philosophy, in which the ruling class rules because they're the intelligent, and those who need leadership, they used to call them sheep. And so they would say that your average person is an unintelligent sheep who wouldn't know how to lead themselves, even if they had the opportunity. And so they believe that by stepping in and taking rule, that they're doing a good thing, that they're actually encouraging a better world. Now, I believe differently. I don't think it would be a better world. At one time I did, but now I realize that I was deceived.
Now, you basically left about 10 years ago. I just couldn't take it anymore. Tell us what went through your mind, how you finally left, and how you were threatened, perhaps almost killed by them, but survived and now living a completely different life.
Yeah, well, I couldn't take it anymore because these people, the higher up you go in the group, the less pleasant the people are, in my opinion. At least at the lower levels, people aren't happy about being in it, but they're doing their job because, at least to some degree, they believe that they're doing a good thing. But as you rise through the ranks, you realize that these people aren't doing it because they believe in a kind of a betterment of the world, but it's just they're laughing because they have wealth, they have power, and they want it, and they're holding on to it.
And I bet even these mid-level, if a lot of these mid-level people would leave like you, perhaps they wouldn't have as big a stranglehold as they have on most every element of our society now. It's incredible, down to, even these peace groups, have been infiltrated by people that, it's just absurd. I'm just watching my country, and I wake up every day wondering, my God, is there really a hope? I guess a lot of these mid-level people don't leave because of the money, correct?
Because of the money, because of the power. Everyone has a hook, and they know that. And so there's different things that hold people. For a lot of people, it's because everyone in their entire family's in it. Is to leave the group. You're giving up your money. You're giving up your family, your mother, your brothers, your sisters, your aunts, your uncles, your cousins, your best friends. All of my best friends were in it, too. I was literally surrounded by people who...
You come from a multi-millionaire family, correct?
Yes, yeah. But I do want to address that now. I believe there is hope, though. I'm a strong Christian, and I believe that there is hope through Christ. It's greater than any power of the Illuminati or any of their goals for our world. And I do know that. I believe that in the end, if a person has a strong faith in Christ, that it can overcome, because these people are very, very, very evil. And I believe, though, that God is greater than their evil, even though, they would argue that if you talk to them.
Yeah, just look at what we're seeing now. And the reason, folks, that this is important is that we're talking to somebody involved in it, that lived it, that actually lived a daily life, had children, went to work, and then got herself involved through birth into this group who felt, they want to basically control us. Now, one of the things that I find interesting is that the involvement here, most people just, they view it kind of like a TV show. They really don't believe it. They do believe it, but when it confronts them basically, when you look them in the eye, that really changes the whole thing. And what I mean changes it, it brings it to reality. And the reality is, folks, we need to have people come like you talk about it so that we can deal with the problem. We have to change the mindset of Americans. They are too naive. Listen, Europeans know this. The Italian people that I live with aren't as naive as my American friends. They have to understand these people are killers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And let me just on that note come back, and I believe we're taking a break right now. Did I hear some music? No. Yeah, I did. I was hearing things. But we'll be back in 3 minutes, Svali, and I know I want to listen to some more of this on the Genesis Communication Radio Network.
Thanks for tuning in to this edition of Coffee on the Air. I'm your host, Joe Java. Today we're talking about guilt-free, healthy coffee.
Back on the Investigative Journal, and we're not even going to get into the high-powered names and waste our time. We know who they are. Svali, I want to hear from you. What are some of the methods? What are some of the methods they use to make money?
If you can think of an illegal activity, they're involved in it, and that's another reason for their being covert. For instance, I know that gun running, white slavery, child prostitution, pornography, the selling of drugs. There's many ways they did it. Careers, selling of military computer codes, different things like that. But normally when something like that's happening, like let's say that they're involved in child prostitution, the national luminaries will not be sitting there during the transaction. Instead, when the transaction occurs, that's passed to someone else who's passed to someone else. And by the time the money's been laundered 2 or 3 times, it actually gets to the person behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's easy to find a patsy to do the dirty work, so to speak, correct?
Oh, yeah, because then if they get caught, they're expendable.
Yeah, exactly. Now, your role as a mind programmer, tell us some of the things you used to do, with people, and I guess your purpose was to reinforce into members this Illuminati mindset, mindset, correct?
Yes. The goal of training was threefold. It was to instill loyalty, to instill obedience, and to help the person. Well, we called it helping, of course. Now I know that was wrong. But to help the person to do their job or role within the group better. Some of the training was to instill teachings, the teachings of the group, like the oral history and tradition. training covers such a broad area that could be a 6-hour discussion, but basically they use positive and negative reinforcement. If someone performs well or does what's expected through the programming session, then they're praised and rewarded. If they do not comply or are not showing that expected behavior over and over and over again, then they're severely, brutally punished. We used to have trainers' tables. We would strap them. We would induce the person into hypnotic state. We'd use drugs, and there's experimental drug protocols being investigated even now. Human experimentation is going on during, through training sessions. They're gathering data on people's responses. But training can cover anything from teaching a child to read contact, to call, to have blind little obedience to their leaders or the people over them, all the way through assassin programming, all the way through courier programming, teaching a child to be a hacker. They have hackers in the group too. I mean, it just covers a broad spectrum.
Yeah.
So it's,
I know about those guys.
Really?
Okay. Well, I mean, I've been on the receiving end of that every now.
If you know about them, you're ahead of most people, because most people don't even know. This isn't your teenage hackers when I say hackers, by the way. I'm talking about they actually teach children and teens with aptitude to do this.
Okay. All right, good. You know what I wanted to get into this one point with you. If you have you ever thought about where would you be if you stayed with them? Where do you think you would have ended up? Were you moving up the chain?
Oh yeah, I was. In fact, the reason I left is that the man over me was moving to regional leadership, which is one step below national here in the U.S. But I was supposed to take his place, but I was asked to do something that I refused to do at that point. But I also had a generational seat on the German Council because I was born in Germany, and it's called the Council of 144, the 144 elders in Germany on the Bruder Heights, and I had a seat on it as well. So I would have held two seats, one here in the U.S. and one in Germany.
And, of course, with that goes wealth and a very easy lifestyle right now.
Yeah.
I know when...
Oh, yeah. In fact, both of my parents are very wealthy.
So now they left. When you left, you were strictly penniless, correct?
Yes. And the little money I did have, my husband cleaned out all the accounts, everything, every penny. And
they separated you from your children for a long time, and it goes on and on.
Yeah.
There is a happy ending to this, though. You finally got back with them. Can you tell us?
Well, yeah. My ex and I were going through a very difficult custody battle. He was saying, quote, "This woman is nuts. This isn't happening. There's no such thing. I'm not a cult leader. She's psychotic." But then finally what happened was I finally got unsupervised visitation of my children. And the children immediately disclosed they were being hurt. I went to CPS. CPS didn't believe them because they said this kind of stuff doesn't happen. So my ex came. I was federal prison because I refused to let my children go back and be hurt. My ex came out. The children confronted him and said, "We don't want to go back and be hurt." And my ex, it took him a few days, and he said, "I need to think about it. I need to think about it." And he decided to leave the group too. So he left. And later came to me and asked my forgiveness for putting me through those horrible years when he was basically holding my children hostage, saying, if you don't come back, you can't have the kid.
What kind of reactions do you get from people when you tell them, or emails you get from some of the articles you've written? What kind of reaction do you get?
I get a lot from around the world saying, "Thank you for being someone who at last is telling the truth. Thank you for your help."
Okay, good. And I'm really... I'm going to take a break, but I thank you, too, for getting on here with me. We'll be back in 3 minutes for our final little segment with Svali on the Genesis Communication Radio Network. Back with our final segment on the Investigative Journal. I wanted to ask Svali, what do you think, Svali? You know, these people are embedded in most every high-level position in our government right now, and high-level media positions. That's the reason why you're not getting the true stories. The people have been getting a slanted version of so many different important stories like 9/11, the Iraqi War, the impending war coming up in Iran, which is another way of they're setting Iran up. It's simple. They function off a war economy. They want to see people basically die. What do you think our hope is right now? How do you think this thing's going to play out from your perspective?
Well, I'm going to tell you how I really believe. One thing that helped me leave the group was I became a Christian several years ago, and I was reading Revelations in the Bible, and I was just absolutely stunned to see it describe exactly what I've been taught, but from a different perspective. I mean, I do believe that there will be a coming leader, because ever since I was a child, they always look for he who is to come. But I think he's going to be overthrown by a greater leader, and that's Jesus Christ. And that's my hope and my faith.
Yeah, whatever faith you are, I mean, a higher power or whatever, it's the same thing. I mean, for those of us who may not believe in Jesus Christ, for those of us who do, I believe if you look at it from your perspective, there has to be some hope, because, you know something, if you just give up, I mean, one thing the Italian people did, and I talked to them, one thing I found, they just said, I do not want to pay the black, they called them the black order. I will not pay them any of my money. So I found out that in Italy, about 60 to 70% of all the money there was unaccounted for. They didn't have the strict IRS laws and everything. So one way the Italians battled back was just by ignoring them and going off on their own. And I found that to be something that, you know, listen, we have to think of ways. I mean, these people control a lot of things. They have a lot of money, and it makes it difficult. But we have numbers, and I hope that people listen to you, people like you, and wake up a little bit, because, you know, you were involved in it. You know how devastatingly dangerous they are. I mean, they'll kill you as soon as look at you, and I know you're frightened a little bit. After this interview, what are you going to do?
I'm not going to do any more interviews for a very long time, because I really don't like drawing attention to myself, to be honest. But I decided to do this simply because I think people need to know that this is real, that these people are real, that they do have an agenda. And to be honest, in part, I'm doing this in restitution for what I did when I was younger. I saw a lot of horrible things, a lot of evil people, and they need to be stopped. And that's my greatest prayer. And I think that people do each do whatever they can to try to stop it. Maybe it could.
Svali, I want to thank you so much. And Dave Wilcox, I know you were there. If you want to just say hi to Svali, I'm running out of...
Okay, so we're all running out of time there in 2006. Running out of time here. Have a good weekend. Come back to the Investigative Journal on Monday. See you later.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today, so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.